The Bullring in Birmingham used to be the home patch of Detective Chief Inspector Bob Poole. He'd investigated murders there for 20 years. He has expertise in reopening old cases. When he took a fresh look at the events surrounding Robbie Powell's death, he was impressed with his father's record-keeping.
His chronological file-keeping and his index were very important to me. Everything that he delivered to other people had proof of delivery or proof of posting on it. Such comprehensive records are extremely rare, if not to say unique.
Chief Superintendent John Daniels, supervising the first investigation, took few formal statements known as Section 9s.
There were very few Section 9 statements. With my contact with the Crown Prosecution Service, it is irrefutable that CPS lawyers act off the content of Section 9 statements.
His investigation was codenamed Operation Radiance. Daniels declined to be interviewed during the investigation. But Poole's investigation soon led to a dramatic development. In the latest inquiry, 5 doctors who treated him all those years ago were arrested and questioned. All the doctors were formally questioned during Operation Radiance. In all, 22 volumes of material, much of it privileged, was sent to the Crown Prosecution Service headquarters in York. They considered the actions of all the doctors who might have been able to save Robbie Powell.
The Crown Prosecution Service very carefully considered all the evidence that was submitted by Detective Chief Inspector Poole's inquiry, and there was a lot of evidence there, including a very great deal of expert evidence. That material was all considered by a senior and experienced Crown Prosecutor here in York, as well as a leading and independent QC. They've both concluded that there's not enough evidence to prosecute for manslaughter.
But their report on Robbie Powell's death went into considerable detail. The first chance to save the little boy was in the hands of consultant William Forbes. The CPS found evidence he'd been negligent. They came to a similar conclusion on the second chance to save Robbie.
It is undoubtedly true that an ACTH test performed in January would almost certainly have saved Robbie's life.
The hospital had already admitted negligence. In the third chance, involving Dr. Elwyn Hughes, they said there was no evidence to suggest negligence.
The treatment did not fall below the standard of a reasonable and competent general practitioner.
They came to the same conclusion on the fourth chance, the Dr. Nicola Flower consultation. But they decided that in the fifth chance, which fell to Dr. Michael Williams, there was evidence of negligence. There was a similar conclusion with the sixth chance, that of Paul Bolatz. Robbie was weak when Dr. Bolatz examined him, showing signs of weight loss.
He therefore should have made an immediate referral to hospital, and there is no doubt that such a referral would have saved Robbie's life.
There was also a similar conclusion about the doctor who had the seventh chance, Keith Hughes.
The evidence suggests that Dr. Hughes' failure to make an emergency referral was negligent.
The CPS decided that although they believed there was evidence these doctors had been negligent, their actions did not cause Robbie's death. For the eighth chance, on the day of Robbie's death, when Nicola Flower saw the boy, the conclusion was that she was grossly negligent.
There is clear evidence to suggest that the risk of Robbie dying would have been obvious to any reasonably competent general practitioner.
On the last possible chance to save Robbie, just hours before he died, Dr. Flower was also said to be grossly negligent. Even if she'd called an ambulance as she got to the house, some experts say it was probably too late. The CPS also looked at the allegation that Dr. Michael Williams had forged the letter referring Robbie back to Morriston Hospital. The letter
was clearly presented in a form designed to mislead anyone reading it into thinking that it had been written contemporaneously.
They concluded that in Dr. Williams' case, there was evidence to support a prosecution for forgery. The CPS also had considerable doubts about the contents of the letter. They felt they were designed
to avert any criticism of his management of Robbie's case.
There were grounds, they said, for prosecuting him for attempting to pervert the course of justice, but the CPS said he would not be charged.
The passage of time, the inappropriate investigation by Dyfed-Powys police, and the fact that they sent a letter that they should not have sent to the GP saying that no further action would be taken is now the reason that they won't be charged.
The CPS also considered forensic evidence that Dr. Nicola Flower may have forged some of her medical notes. She's admitted that some of the notes were not written when she originally said, but 56 days after Robbie died. The CPS believed, too, that evidence suggested she'd committed forgery.
The obvious conclusion is that the notes were written up after the event and were designed to mislead any investigation into her clinical competence.
The contents of her notes describes a child who's well. Robert was seriously ill. We explained him as having dilated pupils and central cyanosis. There's no medical opinion that our version of those events are accurate and that Dr. Flowers are false, so therefore those notes are also forgeries.
The CPS said there were grounds for prosecuting her for attempting to pervert the course of justice. She won't be prosecuted because of the passage of time and the letter from the police chief in May 1996. Jeff Thomas declined to be interviewed, but told us he couldn't remember the letter. We jogged his memory, and then he said it was in line with police practice. He told the doctors that on the advice of the Crown Prosecution Service, no further action would be taken by the police.
He did effectively rule out the possibility of a criminal inquiry being reopened, as indeed was the case. And therefore, with the benefit of hindsight, it might have been better if he'd left a door open by saying in the letter that this advice is subject to no further investigation uncovering further evidence.
I don't think that they send criminals or potential criminals letters saying that no further action will be taken against them. It doesn't seem the right thing to do. If further evidence then comes to light, it's difficult then to overcome that particular type of letter.
The evidence in relation to forgery of documents has only really emerged in the final inquiry, by which time the doctors had already been informed that they wouldn't be prosecuted and some 14 years had elapsed. A prosecution for those offences standing on its own would not be practicable after all this time.
Will Powell met the CPS, who explained their reasons for not prosecuting.
During the course of the meeting, I asked specifically, had these doctors committed the offences of forgery and perverting the course of justice, as you've confirmed to me now, last year, would they be prosecuted? And the answer I had was to the affirmative. They would have been.
The detective who carried out the investigation wasn't too happy either.
I didn't accept their reasoning fully. I could accept some of it. It was a complicated case, and I felt I knew it fairly well, and I felt that some of the reasoning was not strictly accurate.
But the CPS may still have a part to play in the case.
We will look very carefully at any new material that's come out at the inquest, and we will take account, of course, of the inquest verdict. So it's not the end of the CPS involvement at the moment.
We asked Dr. Forbes for an interview about the issues raised in this programme. We also approached the GPs involved in Robbie's care. They said they did nothing wrong. But like Dr. Nicola Flower, they all declined to be interviewed.
Jonathan Hill from ITV Wales. I'd like to ask you a few questions for a programme that's going to be broadcast after the inquest. Do you have any comment to make?
Will Powell's campaigns against the doctors and the police have produced extraordinary results, but he's still after one more catch, a public inquiry into Robbie's death. He thought he was certain to land it because one of his great champions in 1996 was the Labour politician Rhodri Morgan.
I think nothing less than an independent inquiry is probably ever going to really get to the truth.
After Mr. Morgan became First Minister at the National Assembly, his view changed.
public inquiries really are only justified if there's some wider public issue that would actually be gained by it. And I don't think really that's the right route forward here.
When he became in a position to give me an inquiry, he refused to do so, which was very disappointing.
Rhodri Morgan wouldn't give us an interview. He says he's now studying the results of the inquest. Bob Poole is back home in Birmingham, retired.
One of the most important things is trying to rebuild lives and trying to determine a point where you can get on with the rest of your life. Mr. and Mrs. Powell are no nearer that 10 years later than they were in 1990. And now a further 3 years down the line, 13 years later on, with still more activity to come, this healing process has yet to start for them.
I've always wanted photos because I don't want him to be forgotten. It just brings me pleasure now and again, you know, just to see him. And I got him in every room.
If it takes me the rest of my life to attempt to establish the truth, then I'll have to do that. I've been driven by Robert's love, by the promise I made to him. I believe I owed it to Robert. It was my duty to establish what went wrong. I needed to do that for our peace of mind.
Could you find it in your heart to forgive them?
I don't know. As I say, if they came in the beginning and said they were sorry, things would have been different. But what they've put us through for 13 years, I just can't accept it.
There are more than 1 million cars on the roads of Wales. Every year, more than 100,000 new ones are bought, and almost as many come to the end of their life. But next week, the story of a man who's in trouble because he's keeping hundreds of old cars in a wood to save them from the scrapyard.